My name is Roberta Stanley. I'm a ordained Reverend with the Uniting Church. My association with the Uniting Church has been for many years. My family comes from Hopevale on my grandmother's side, from Coen, in the Cape. And my father, his family comes from Bindal country in Townsville. And also his mother comes from Keppel Island. So, Hopevale people. So, that's who I am. I grew up in North Queensland, in the little town of Bindal. Born and bred there, did all my schooling there, and then graduated into nursing at a very early age. I did that for about 24 years.
That's lovely. I didn't know you were a nurse.
Yeah, a registered nurse. I've been nursing for all those years around the place.
That's wonderful. So where did the call come from you? Where did you start hearing the call?
Nursing. Well, my dad's sister. She was a matron that worked at Yarrabah through her church mission. She was one of the first registered nurses, nursing sister, and delivered a lot of babies in Yarrabah, and so and even at the Anglican church there, I have the photo of her, and she delivered lots of babies, so she did a lot of midwifery. So I guess that, and even when I started nursing, a lot of people knew her. So that's, I think, where I got the nursing from. And then a lot of my mates from school all went nursing, so we'll all be nursing together.
And having all that new life come in then too.
Yeah, and I worked a lot of when I first started nursing for about 4 years in midwifery, and I love that, all the newborn babes, and it was. So, and then I got to branch out and did a lot of stuff with National Aboriginal Council. Pastor Bill Hollingsworth was the chairperson there, and Uncle Steve Nan. Yeah, so I got to work a lot with those sorts of people, and and that's when I sort of was involved with the church, with two of my uncles, Uncle Bill, Pastor Bill Hollingsworth, and Uncle Bert, his older brother. They're both ministers and been ministers here for years. So that's my influence, I guess, and my grandmother, who was stolen generation, taken and put into Yarrabah from Cape Melville, and she was our spiritual guide and she was our nurse, I guess. And her influence, even though she went through all that stolen generation, being taken from her place at a young age and put into Yarrabah, they were good days, dormitory days. She remembered them as she learned to cook and do stuff and that. But she was she was our spiritual guide and taught us about the things of the Lord. So.
We have the same sort of story in our family in terms of the dormitory days being not seen as bad days, but as as days that were fulfilling for a lot of people. I mean, it was tough times, but.
Yeah, we laugh in our family because Granny Massey was just such a strong, stately woman.
Yeah.
Pop Massey, he was from Coen, and he was put into Yarrabah too. But he was, it was funny, he was a foreman because he did a lot of carpentries and stuff. And now this is a person that never had much education, but he was a foreman and looked after the mill and all that sort of stuff, and he built his own home. To get married, he had to prove that he can build his own home. He built a boat, fish traps, did so, and then he decided, we're going to Bindal. We're going to make it the white man's way, was his words, and that's where, and as carpenters, they bought some land and got 3 homes on them, so all the uncles built the homes. So that's because grandparents were very strong, both of them, stolen generation, but the grandfather was a real stately, astute businessman basically, and yet never had much education. He just watched all the white men and stuff.
And that's what you were saying earlier before we started sort of recording, is that yes, I might watch and I might be quiet, but I'm taking it all in.
Yeah, and then my mother too didn't have much education, but she was our business bank manager basically.
Oh really?
Yeah. One wage, and there was 4 of us, and Dad would just pass over his little pay packet, and that was it. And she was in charge of looked after us, and it's not funny, but never had that formal education. But was very astute with money, and she got that from her father. really. Yeah.
That's
It was,
good.
yeah, it was interesting. You don't think about it a lot because time just rolls on and you just get into stuff. But when you think of where you come from, I guess, and how those formative years and how they and Pastor Bill Hollingsworth and Pastor Bert Hollingsworth, that's my mum's cousin. So you know, family, that was always so they were very you know, Christian orientated.
So you grew up going to church?
Yeah. You know, conventions and all that sort of stuff. And little old place on the banks of the Mulgrave River, little dear old church, is where most of us, you know, talk about, and where we had that's when Pastor Bill and Ruth came to teach out at on the banks of the Mulgrave River, and I came to the Lord when I was very young, but I grew up Sunday school, you know, youth groups and all that sort of stuff. So you grew up with that, and that was just part and parcel of your life. So you thought that's what everybody does. So yeah. So those are the things that really shaped my life, my formative years, I guess. And you don't really, and you just get on with life, but you don't really think about all that sort of stuff. You just think that's your life. That's what everybody does. And I was surprised when I did go out nursing when I was 17, 18, to think that's what everybody does. We just live the same sort of normal life like everybody else. Yeah. And you get out in the real world, especially with nursing, and you see a whole different world. But I love nursing, so it was. Yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't know much about that. And what about you know, in terms of faith? Because a lot of people ask the question of me when I've heard this question asked of a lot of people, is that they don't necessarily understand the connection, the strong connection that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have to the Christian faith, and why. You know, why would that be there when you know, when there's been such hardship and
It's so funny you say that, because I don't know, like I said, growing up, that's what we knew. That's who our grandparents and our parents and, you know, and even the small town community of Bindal. The community, we grew up with discipline, and a lot of I grew up with a lot of older people. So for me, if there was people, I just gravitate to the older people. So that's what I grew up with, and I just assumed that's how everybody. So for myself, is my grandmother. It was very, and like I said, the cousins were all ministers, and Brother Rob, Sister Gwenny Williams. Wonderful island folks who are strong evangelistic people, and they were like so we grew up with a lot of Christian people around us, I guess, and it was just a natural thing to do. We never questioned it. So I don't know, and I looked at that and I think, because we've had that, and our grandmother, who, like I said, dormitory days, my grandfather, he wasn't a spiritual man, but he was very, you know, he respected my grandmother, and they were a team. You know, they were a team. And then I grew up in the Anglican church. Yes. So you know, Church of England. That's where we, you know, I got confirmed when I was 13 or 14 in the Anglican church, and that was our life. I think that was just no. And sometimes I think of my grandmother, you know, seeing other folks and other families struggling with a lot of stuff, and I think, but for the grace of God, if we didn't have the family that we had to help us come through, I wouldn't be here today. I know that.
Yeah, so you felt the presence of God in your life all through the hardship.
Yeah, like I said, we grew up, we went to Sunday schools, we youth groups and stuff, but that was, for me, that was the seed was already planted, I guess, and then my grandmother would take us to church services, conventions, so we were that was our scene for all those years, so never thought anything of it differently. Till when, you know, you're 17, 18, you have to get out and work, and I went nursing. And you see that wider community, and then, you know, sort of, and when I left nursing and worked with the National Aboriginal Council, you got to work a lot with our people and saw the hardships and stuff. But I don't know, it's funny you said that, because I think about that sometimes, you know, like families who have struggled and stuff, and people who, I mean, my grandmother was taken away from Hopevale, put into Yoruba, and was not allowed to speak the language. Yeah. never, yet my aunties and that, I used to love listening to them speak. I could understand what they were saying, but I couldn't speak it because they said, no, when you go there, that's evil. So I don't have a language. But the folks from Hopevale or family will speak, so so I don't have that sort of. But in lots of ways, it didn't worry me in the sense I had family, I had everyone around, so I didn't have to. We had our own language, I guess. We spoke our own way. But and just as I got older, and people are saying, you sort of people spoke their language, but I didn't. And even like I said, we're just finding out on my dad's side, his mother was taken away from Keppel Island. We just last year, just before Christmas, we got Keppel Island, the big island. They just got all that back a few years back. But just last year, the small island, we went to a handover. And that was just beautiful, right on the island. And it was just lovely. It was just lovely. They had the actual court hearing right on the island, and it was just beautiful to watch. And hearing the hardships and stuff. But I must say, all of the family, I was very proud of them all. What my grandmother and all their family went through was just horrible, to say the least. But and then the mayor from the young girl from the Yeppoon, and they came and apologised and everything. So that was really emotional. That was really beautiful. And then I was really happy how my family reacted to that. And that's how my father was. So his mother, very gentle, very didn't say too much, but when he said something, you watch out. So I grew up a lot on my mum's side, my mum's family side, if you like, and we're just getting to know all my dad's side. And his father comes from Bindal country in Townsville.
And so you talked about how nursing sort of perhaps triggered something in you to walk closely or more closely towards faith or a life of faith.
Yeah, because it was funny, because like I said, I grew up, we did Sunday school and youth groups and stuff, and then you went away, and then I was 18 when I went to nursing. I was 16 and they said, you've got to be 18, so I started when I was 18 to do nursing. And then not so long after that, Pastor Bill and Aunty Ruth came to minister to us in the Mill Church at Urell. So that was really good, because by then that's when I came back to the Lord. And then I realised this is, at a very young, I was about 19, 20 at the time. And this is the path I've chosen. And it was really lovely, because then Uncle Bill and Aunty Ruth, see, I love school, but really them kind of, you're ashamed to ask for questions and stuff like that, or very smart but just really scared. Whereas Uncle Bill and Aunty Ruth, he got a teaching ministry, so that was really good, because in some ways it locked a lot of stuff, because I love learning, I love reading and all that sort of stuff now. So that was that I think was a platform for me as I went on. Nursing was just and I was an enrolled nurse for years, and he'd say, why don't you become a registered nurse? I said, no, I don't think so. But that's exactly what the Townsville did, all my training and stuff. I worked as a nurse for years. So become a registered nurse, and then the Lord said, that's good, you've done your thing, now come and do mine. And that's when I got to work with the church a lot then. And that's when I did the training, my theology studies, not so long after that.
So in terms of like where we are now as a First Nations or First Peoples ministry and representation of ministry, we have, I'm very grateful for yourself and Uncle Dennis. What are your hopes for the future of our First Peoples in ministry?
Because when I did my theology studies, it was like part-time, 5.5 years, and we did certificate 4 and diploma level. And that was really good, because it was a nationally accredited, and we were like the pilot program, if you like, and if you succeed, that's wonderful. And so Robbie Jetta and I finished. He came from WA all the time, and he's an ordained minister. And I think for myself, when I got ordained, I didn't realise it then, because she was so busy with work, not what I was ordained that day. I guess I got to realise this is not about me, this is about everyone. And even my ordination, the day, there was 3 or 4 families. There was a young widow that they were just burying that very day, and then the others have lost loved ones. So there's about 3 or 4 people in the audience, if you like. And so it was like, as much as it was the celebration. This is, you got to pray for everybody. This is people who are suffering out there, and you can't just. There's nothing about you. It's about them. And I think from there, that day, it was, it was lovely to get this recognition. But like I said, there were 4 families who were suffering, just laying a young boy to rest at that very time, and other families who were suffering. So for me, it was from that very day, which I've always known because I was doing ministry before that anyway, that this was never about me. It was all about everybody else. So for me, the importance is families. The importance of our families who were struggling, and that's when I work with the youth justice group, is to see the struggles of families. So for myself, that thing of our people, we are so family orientated, no matter what, no matter how broken the family, it's so important to be there. And for me, that thing is so important, and if God's given me the platform to speak, if you like, it's not for me, it's to include our families. And I think because that's our richness, who we are is our families, and that's our richness. And I'd like to see us as our people, Indigenous people, move forward together as a family. God, I've heard this from my pastor many times, God never made junk. So we're made in God's image. So as we talked about before, if it wasn't because of my grandmother and my grandfather and what I've been given, I wouldn't be here today. And I see the suffering of other families. So if I can help them to sort of say, well, I can't take all your suffering, but God can. He can give you a whole new life. And what, as I said to you last night, at the place that I worked all your life, and now you're at a place where you've got these jobs that you love doing, and they're quite happy to pay for it. So for me, and I say to the young ones, get into a job that you love, go for it, because then that'll be your whole life's work. You don't have to struggle at the end of your and that's what I want to see for our future, for our young ones, is I want to see our families really become the rich families that we really are. And then as we just be there, but then only God's love can help us to bring us through all that suffering and stuff, because we've been such a divided group of people, and everyone's telling us, we're no good, we're going to amount to nothing. No, we're made in God's image. And He said when He made us, He saw that it was very good. So for me, and all the teaching I've been given, and to know God is very much He very much wants. We talk about the Lord's Prayer, our Father, which art in heaven. So if we can say our Father, so therefore He wants to bring many sons unto glory. So therefore us as our people, we just love families. We just love being with each other. And that's what I love to see more and more, just being together. Like we had a meal last night, it was just lovely. And you had family and that sort of stuff. And what we do at the justice group, we have a lot of the elders, and we have a meal every Monday. We just have a meal. Big table is laid, and everybody comes. And our defendants would come. We'd have a meal with them, and we could have the police inspector. We could have the magistrates come. Everybody could sit at the table, and we don't know who we're sharing a meal with, and it's just bringing everyone together.
So that happens every week, does it?
Every Monday we like to. Well, we got 3 Mondays missing. Because of the holiday. But normally we do that, and we've been doing that all last year. COVID mucked up a few things, but we were able to just manage to be together. So we find, just have a meal together. Just sit down. Our defendants, they find it very strange, but we said, okay, we'll give you a meal. You don't have to be with us, but we'll make sure you get a meal. And so that, for me, is so important, because it's just coming together. And then now we invite a lot of the different government agents who we work with, and sort of say, well, we're not here to take your jobs. We're here to support you too, because we're all here to try and fight and help our young ones and the families and stuff. So that to me is really important. And that's the thing I talk about, families. I think more and more as I get older, that thing of just coming together as a family, and the more we sort of are able to do that, because we've been so divided and scattered, that's what I look forward to. And I guess, that's...
So, Aunty Roberta, what would you say to a young person who is, was struggling in their place in the world and might be a bit angry for whatever reason, or, you know, has had some past trauma in their lives, or, you know, and or continuing trauma in their lives, what would be your advice to them?
I would speak straight into the camera this time, because I can remember, I grew up in a little country town. I can remember when, back in those days, we didn't go off, they were just starting year 11 and 12, so you knew you were going to work. So I can still remember, I was about 16 or 17 and walking out of that school thinking, what's my future? Where do I go from here? What is it going to look like for my future? So I sit here today still remembering that 17-year-old trying to go from a small country town to even come to Cairns to look for work. And there have been really good people along the way that have helped me who worked in the education department. Uncle Ted Waimara, you know, our uncle, old fella, Papa Miller, he was very good. He was working in the education department. They really supported me, and he took me to nursing, to the matron when I was 16, and she said, no, you're going to be 18 to come back to nurse. And I went back when I was 18. She said, you start. So to any young ones who are out there, I understand fully what it is to come from a small community, coming to try and find work, having no contacts, don't know anybody, and even to come from there to a town like Cairns, it's not as big as it was back then, but it was huge. And trying to find out how you fit, where you fit, what is it going to look like for your future. And to any young ones, I could say right now, without a shadow of a doubt, God was able to direct my life and to care for me enough and put good people along the way to help me. And to any young ones who are out there, your future, I want you to remember this, that God never made junk. You're made in God's image. And I can tell you a whole story from a young person coming from a small community trying to find your way in the world. Very hard, very difficult. But I can tell you, if you have a dream in your heart, I want to go nursing. I didn't understand any of it. And when they said, when you're 18, you can go nursing. But that was my goal, and I worked in prawn factories, and I did all the labouring jobs and did all the things that had to be done, because I knew one day I'm going to meet that matron, I'm going to be there at 18, I'm going to go. And that's exactly what I did. So telling young ones, if there's a little light burning in your heart and that you really want to do something, you do it with all your might, what your hands find to do. Do your very best. There's a little dream in your heart. There's a goal that you really want to achieve. And whatever that light is, whatever that goal and dream is, you go for it. That light might be a little flicker and it might be getting blown out by everything that happens to you. But if there's something that you really, really want to do, you stand by that, because that's what God's given you. He's given you a dream. He's given you something very important. And for me, I wanted to get to nursing. And that was, in those days, it was a struggle to even get there. But when I got there, $108 was my first pay I ever got. And after all these years of all the different jobs, that was my one pay I was so proud of. And so nursing just wasn't just work, it became a part of my life. And I loved it, and I was there for about 24 years. My registered nurse, did all that, till the day God says, that's it, you've done your thing, now come and do my thing. But I tell you, any young ones who are struggling, trying to find their way through, I can tell you without a shadow of doubt, you can do whatever you want to do. There's a dream, there's a goal there that you work for, and you go for it. And I can sit here today, I can tell you a whole range of things, but I'm at the stage in my life where I love what I do. And the beauty of it right now is to say to you young ones, to those who who think you're not good enough. And that's been a thing that I thought I was never there yet. My pastor Bill and Aunty Ruth Hollingsworth. You don't hear about Aunty Ruth. She's a very quiet, beautiful, beautiful lady. Pastor Bill Hollingsworth was a great man of God. And that man should have been dead when he was 10 or 8 because he was a very sickly man. And God brought him through. God taught him. He didn't do any of the formal studies, but God taught him. And he lived to 88. He just died 2 days after his 88th birthday. So, and Aunty Ruth was just a beautiful lady who just sat quietly with him. And she was my cheerleader. She never said much. If there was any important things I had to do, my first funeral or my first whatever I had to do, she'd be sitting down there quietly smiling and encourage me and say, yeah, you can do it better. You know, and it was just that quiet, gentle. So I've been so blessed. My father of the faith, Pastor Bill Hollingsworth, and my mother of Israel, Aunty Ruth Hollingsworth, were 2 people who were 2 different gifts that they brought. But Aunty Ruth always, and both of them just believed in me. See, that's the thing. When you have someone who believes in you no matter what, I never believed in myself. Enrolled nurse for many years, and then he'd say, go, you can become a registered nurse, nursing sister. I thought, no, never. So if I can achieve that, I say to our young ones, you go for it. Give it your best. There's a little light there shining in your heart. Don't let no one blow it out. Go for it. Do your very best. And I sit here today to anyone, any of our people. He said he'll open doors that no man can close, and he'll close doors that no man can open. We are made in his image. God never made junk, and we made. He wants the very best for us. And don't let no one tell you you can't. My Bible tells me I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you go for it. Go for it. Give it your best. And it's the steps, those little steps. I used to think it had to be big, giant leaps. My Bible tells me the steps of a good man are ordered of the Lord, and he delights in his ways. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. I've been young, now I'm old, but I've not seen the righteous forsaken, or his seed begging bread. You see, folks, God's very much interested in young people. He's interested in babies even before they're born. And look at Jesus. Look where he was born, in a manger. He was born in a real body as a young baby. So he knows the whole process that we go through in life. He lived 33 and a half years. So he knows the process we go through. He knows all the struggles that we go through. It's not that nothing is, for me to be able to share with you today and to say very comfortably all the struggles you go through, he sees it. He'll bring you through. I can attest to that. If I can be where I am today, it's doing your very, do it as unto him. Do all that you can do as unto him, and say, Lord, get to the place where you say, well, I can't do this. That's good. Just say, Lord, I can't. Please help me. And I can tell you very clearly he will help you. It's not just the big things, and as I said, it's those little steps. One day at a time, you see. Teach me to take one day at a time. It's those little steps. Do those little things. And those little things will lead to big things. You know, was it that song?
Paul Kelly's.
That's so cute. Oh, that's really good. But you have a drink now, and then we'll start again with some other stuff.
This is it too.
That was so good.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're thinking about I just think about these kids in care, in out-of-home care. So if they're carers, if the people who, if they're carers can show them that video and say, just have a listen to Aunty Roberta, just have a listen to her, and when they're in out-of-home care and they're feeling lost and the home carers don't know what to say. Yeah, so I just think it's really, this is why you do it. So this is why we're creating this resource, so these little fellas out there can link into all these people all across the state. So, yeah, because
Yeah, it's, you would have heard of that accident that we had recently with those young ones.
no, sorry.
No, that was very sad. We got to work with a lot of those kids, especially the one that passed. It was a beautiful thing. It was just so satisfying.
Yeah.
She's right in the door, but when she starts,
You don't stop. You like Uncle Dennis, yeah. Uncle Dennis, yeah. It's the same. So I suppose just continuing on from, that beautiful, what was it? A liturgy that you just delivered?
no, probably just so encouragement,
Yeah.
exhortation, just to be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because when you live it and you go through those experiences, you can sort of say, yeah. And I say that the same to my nieces and nephews now. Go for it. Get into the job you love to do first.
So what part of your life at the moment brings you the most joy? What makes you happy?
I'm really excited more as I said to you, seeing people like you, the young ones who are coming through. I guess when you work with the justice group and you're working with kids who are just so traumatised, so that's when you're struggling to try and bring them to a certain, that's what I'm saying to people, our people, they're 0, our people are sort of at negative 20, trying to come, well, the white people are up there at 20, and so we have to walk back to our people to say, yep, you can do this, keep going, and that's the trauma, I guess. So for me, my greatest encouragement, if you like, is to encourage them, say, yep, come on, we can do it. Those little steps. Come on, bub, we can do this. You can do it, just like you would with children, watching them taking those first few steps. And my greatest encouragement is to see people, just those little steps, and put them in the right direction. Say, yeah. So you see with the youth group, the justice group, a lot of the kids haven't been in school for 12 months or so. So our priority is school. It might take them a while to get there. There's lots of obstacles to even get there, but that's the goal. We're going to get you to school. And yeah, we pay for the uniform, and that's as simple. And then sort of work with the families to sort of, get the family dynamics sorted out first. Some don't even have a home. Some, they're all scattered. Let's bring them all together. Let's work with them. That's why we have our meals, I guess, is to have all the different organisations come together. That's what I enjoy, is when we all come together. I don't care. And we say it's a working lunch because we know you're in big jobs, so let's just have a meal together.
And that's what walking together is, isn't it? Yeah, is actually really taking time to sit and spend time together.
And it's lovely because half the people we don't know. Sometimes we'd have, some people will say they're coming to this time, but they mightn't come for 3 weeks later. And we've already booked other people, so we might have 3 groups of 6 people walking in the door all at once. So they're all walking in the door together. So we've gotten to the stage now, 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. Lord, you're going to provide. Lord, you're going to provide it. So we just laugh, and then so they come, and we say, yeah, come, yeah. Even if we have tea and bread, that's what we're going to have a meal. But that's important, and we want everyone to know. So if we work with those organisations and bring them all together, we know our kids are going to get the best, and we want to include. So that's how we work with all those different organisations, bring them together, work with them, and saying, look, we're all here to make sure our kids get the very best. So let's support them and their families. We're really on about the family. So for me, that part of it is what I love doing most, because I guess it comes back to what we said before, just the family, just being together. And that thing, of just watching each one now moving and doing things. And like I said, too long we've harped on all the negative stuff. No, I'm tired of that. Let's look at the good stuff. There's a lot of good. Our young people are doing really well. Let's harp on that. Let's highlight that. And I think maybe my thing is, because we're such an oral, I'd love to see more books and stuff written and highlighted all the good that a lot of our kids are doing, a lot of our people are doing, and put it out there for that world to see. No, we're not a bunch of drunks, and people have got their own home. People have got, they're doing really well. Thank you very much. Let's highlight that.
Yeah.
That's what brings me the greatest joy.
Yeah.
That's what I'd love to see more and more.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, honey, what does culture in today's, modern life look like to you? How do you keep culture in your daily life?
Yeah, for me, I guess, with everyone being so busy with work and stuff like that, but if we, like I said, my sister's really into all that cultural stuff and stuff. I never really, my thing was looking at what God is on about. So for me, my thing is what God wants me to do, and how do we, as a family, as a group of people. So culture to me is just all very much a part of all that, in the sense of family is very important. We don't have the language, but there's a way we do things as a family. There's those little things that we do as a family, and what we're teaching our kids, and then the grannies who are coming up. Just the little things that we do and how we did it. So for me, that part of it is culture, and it's always. But the most important thing for me is families, and how we guiding all our families, and all the different entities, and watching all the nieces and nephews with their families. So for me, just being with them and bringing them all together, that's how I see culture, if you like. Just all the little things that we grew up with.
Yeah.
Like I said, we grew up in a small community, small town. We grew up in the bush. So family and interaction with the family. So that's what, and the respect for our elders and all that. That those little things, that's always very important to me to say to the kids, how you treat your elders. And so for me, because I grew up with a lot of older people, it was just that respect. It was just there, and I never really thought about it. I just I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I just thought, well, that's how everyone does it. So we all, work with each other. We all support each other, and that's. And I always say to my family, if you starve, we all starve. If I've got $16 or $20 in my bank, you take the key card and you go get milk and bread. So none of us starve. We're all in this together. So for me, those sorts of things are so important, and the thing of giving, it's never about me or anything that I have. If I've been blessed, then that's to be given to everybody else, to make sure, or to encourage them and say, you can do this. If I can't give you money in that, which I'd love to give you, I can encourage you to say, you do your best. You can get out there. You can buy yourself stuff and be on the same path as everyone else. And a lot of these kids, we say, you don't have to go out and steal. Get into a proper education. Get to school. Then you can work, and just like everybody else, you have to go and steal from people. We had everything we needed, because, we didn't have a phone till later on down the road, didn't worry, TV, we had, and then cars later. But it wasn't, we all got on really well, we didn't need that, but it was just that thing of being together, that we shared whatever we had, and that's what we got from you, just among your grandparents, and all that they fought hard for. It was just those simple things, I think. And I get scared when, you sort of get too much money and stuff like that, because we all struggle. We all struggle all our life. And then when you do get money, you're a bit more comfortable. It just seems strange because I'm not used to this.
It's kind of true, isn't it?
Because I still remember, my family had $16 on my key card, and they were looking for milk and bread. I said, take the key card. $16 in there, come get milk and bread. I said, if you're going to starve, we're all going to starve together.
We've all been there.
Yep.
All right.
God.
So I also wanted to ask you about the covenant, because I was talking to Reverend Sharon Hollis, and we had a talk. She interviewed me for her podcast. Don't put this in here, and she was talking about like the Assembly's looking at revisiting the covenant. Can you talk about, you know, what your hope is? I might come and sit over here. Can you talk about what your... I'm going to sit here because you can see me then, so you don't look sideways. Can you talk about what your hope for the covenant is, and how you'd like to see the covenant expressed in the church for, you know...
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it's important, really is important, because of that covenant, 1994. Remember, the one who spoke, it was Pastor Bill Hollingsworth and Dr. Jill Savant. Remember, I grew up hearing about why it was so important. Now, they grew up in the Pentecostal churches, right? And all those elders putting the covenant together, and I guess all of them agreed that when they were in the Pentecostal churches, everyone was saying, that's wonderful, you can be song leaders, you can be, but don't look to be leaders, don't look to be pastors. And so that's where the dilemma came in, was like, well, if that's the case, then we know we got just as much as anybody else. But if you're telling us we can't be ministers, we can't do. So that's when they sat down and looked at what is it that we really want for our people. So they knew enough of God, what God taught them. Pastor Bert Hollingsworth was one of the top, first minister in Queensland, if you like, through the Inland Mission. So he's an ordained minister. Uncle Bill went the other way, if you like, as a pastor, layperson. But so for them, it was important right back then to sort of say, well, we need to, the covenant was so we can have the same platform with the Uniting Church, because they found with the Uniting Church, they would listen to them, and all the moderators were very on the same par, and sort of looked at this and said, well, okay, you Indigenous people and we as Uniting Church, let's, under God's banner, let's look at how we can meet at the same table, if you like. So that's where the covenant came in about self-determination. Basically to have that autonomy to do, because obviously our Indigenous people are very different and the way they do things. And so when they looked at the covenant, it was like, you recognise us as First Peoples of this nation. We do things differently. But in saying that, if we have this covenant, then it's under God's banner. It's got to be a binding under that covenant agreement, but it's also recognise our people. We are different. We do things differently. But under God's umbrella, you do things your way, that's fine. But we need to meet on the same platform where we, yes, we would love to be ordained ministers. We would love to be in administration. We would love to be able to do all that governance stuff, just like everybody else. We might do things differently, but we can meet on that same plane. So the covenant agreement was that everybody having that mutual respect for each other, basically. Allow us to have the self-determination to do the things we need to do our way. It might be your way, but it all comes out on the same platform. If you want our ministers to be ordained, let's encourage them. Let us encourage them to do and then be who they are. Teach them, but let's teach them our ways too, But to be able to be who we are. That's the main thing about the covenant, is that we are who we are. We are different people. We're not the same. We don't want to be assimilated on the same platform. You have your story, we have ours. Allow us the autonomy, if you like, to be who we are and the way we do things. Respect us for it. We might bring a different element to what you're used to, but the covenant agreement, just like in a marriage agreement, you know, two people come together, two different backgrounds and everything else, but they make this covenant agreement. So in that sense, but it's on the same level, the same path and the same platform. So it's like we're sitting at the table and we both agreeing at that same platform, if you like. Not this one up here telling us what to do, not we as a child. No, we agree that this is what we are going to do and we're going to do it our way. Respect us to do it, but let's meet on that same platform, if you like. That was the covenant, as I see it, is that mutual respect for each other. We do it a different way, we do it differently, but you respect us. And we move through this together. As we're talking about moving together, stepping through together. That's how I see the covenant. It's not just everyone telling us what to do. See, we had never been allowed in lots of ways. That's what the covenant was all about. We're allowed to be ourselves. We're allowed to do it our way, in our own time, I guess. But also, together, recognising each other. At the end of the day, it was just recognising us for the self-determination that we're going to do this our way. Be different to your way, but let's meet together at that same. And you would find that this side of the United Church, what people would realise, they'd be enriched. They might bring a lot of what they have to this side of the story, but we bring just as much to enhance what you do. And that's the mutual respect.
Yeah.
As I talk about, is that we moved through this together. As I see the covenant, it's just that, because those elders back then they were tired of everyone telling them, you can be silently this, you can be this, but don't expect to be in that governance role. Don't expect to be in the leadership role. Don't expect to be ordained. And so that's what they wanted to be at that same level. That's what it was about.
Yeah. So where does the UAICC sit in this now in terms of Queensland and how we move forward? I mean, how do we get Indigenous ministry reinvigorated in the...
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's, I mean, South Australia and all those places, they're there. Queensland is a whole different, it's like Queensland has got to start. Yet they were the ones who were really autonomous and into everything. So it's that thing of, I guess, at the end of the day, it's folks like you, is you're bringing everyone together. That's the main thing. I think for now, what we're going to do is just bring everyone together, sit at the table and say, okay, this is the history, this is where we are now. But we do this for our future.
Yeah.
Just like a Joshua, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore, Joshua, you're going to lead them now. You take them into the promised land. So, and that was a whole different generation that went into the promised land. So for us, I guess, where to from here is, this is our rich history. Let's not forget our rich history. We're here sitting, okay. The bridge looks like it was broken. Okay, let's build a new bridge. Let's build this new bridge, and this bridge is where we can all walk over it together. Let's have that bridge where, you on this side of the bridge, but it's where a place where we can all walk over this bridge together. Look at the stories. It's not one story better than the other, but it's us together, working it out together, and saying, well, okay, let's sit down and discuss it. Like I said before, we don't do it right when we can't agree to disagree. But at least let's sit at the table, let's move forward, and so when we do that, then the next generation have something to work on, a platform to walk over and to walk on, and allow them the freedom to do it their way.
Yeah.
So I think, and for us, growing up, we always have our elders, and our elders are very important, and that's who defines us, makes us who we are. We will never forget that that's who we are. So we're here now. So what's going to happen now is, in lots of ways, we're the ones that are going to make the decision and be allowed to make it. We're going to make mistakes like everybody else. We're going to make mistakes how we do things. But I'd like to see if we can have this bridge where it's a place and a platform where we all walk over it together, where we have that interaction together, and we lay a platform, if you like, to sort of say, okay, this is what we agree on. And we come to it together. For us, like you did for those 2 days, the yarning circle was beautiful because it allowed us to go away, to talk about it, and to hear ourselves, if you like, for the first time, to sort of say, well, yeah, this is what we think, and yeah, and be able to bring them up. And when we did that for 2 days, and it really encouraged us to sort of say, well, yeah, we can make these decisions, and we're allowed to make. So that sort of stuff, where we can come together, think about it ourselves, and then sort of say, and it's just those little steps to be able to interact, not be intimidated because these people have got all the skills and all the, but to sort of say, no, we have richness on our side. We've got beautiful richness that, like I said, money or no money doesn't really, but we have it and it's us. And we want to bring that to you too. Let's see how we can work this through together. Come across with that bridge, work it out, and then we can move on, because I think it's so important now that we have to lay a platform for the next generation to come through, to be strong and autonomous. And yes, we can be ordained ministers. Yes, we can be in these leadership roles. One day, surely can have an Indigenous moderator. You've got a girl that's going to be president next year, in a couple of years' time. So, those sorts of things, to be able to have, look at America, always thinking, well, we'll have a prime minister, we'll have a president, and there it was. That sort of stuff. So those sorts, I think, to be able to allow to dream. A lot of our people, we talk about dreaming and all the rest of it, but a lot of our people were not allowed to be themselves, to dream. We can do this. We can own a house. We can own a car. We can do this and we can do that. And our kids can go off to, uni if they want to, and become this, that and the other. So I think for myself, I want to see more of our generation be allowed to dream. Those big dreams, because I think too much of it was chopped off. Too much was saying, no, you can't. You're just a bunch of no-hopers. You're useless. You're going to amount to nothing. No.
And for young people who may not have a family, do you think, the church can provide that family for them, can be that family for them?
It can be that family. That comes back to being able to, because it's like you said, a lot of the stuff, the bridges have been broken, if you like. So we've got to get that right, if you like. We've got to establish that. We've got to establish our churches. First of all, we've got to establish our people. And give them, to sort of say, yes, the strength, and then to be able to come together as a community to support. And then we can move forward. Yeah. Oh yeah, this I've come to the place where, yes, we can do. When you have people who believe in you, like I said, I have 2 people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. So if I could be sitting here and all the achievements that I've achieved, if we can, and I think it comes back to that thing of community. And when we can, as a body of believers, as a group of people who really can be strengthened together and walk together, then we can help the others and help them to say, yes, we can. It can be done. And it's just finding our way through it. I think the next 2, 5, 10 years is going to be very important to place that platform, if you like, to really place a good, like any house, you have to lay a foundation. And so once that foundation is laid, all the pipes and all that comes once, and that takes forever. Once that's done, that foundation, then you can put the walls up and everything else in the roof. And that's what I think where we're at, is trying to lay this foundation out, trying to lay this platform. And that's going to take time to do it, and bring in everyone. And once that's laid and once that's established, and you have good people who can help lay that strong, firm foundation, then you can really start building and moving forward and together. And that's, I think that's the whole challenge before us, I guess.
Yeah.
It's working our way through all this. It can be done. But there's a lot of brokenness. That people are really broken and lost their identity and stuff like that. If we can help to restore that, move together as a body of group of people, and then I believe if we lay a good foundation, others can build on it, if you like.